Welcome back for another episode of Sunday SoulDay, fueling your mind, body, and soul with soulful conversations and life-changing insights. Today's episode is sponsored by Leadership Garden, a coaching ecosystem created to provide women and men with the safe, supportive space to rewire leadership identities, prune limiting patterns, and grow into purpose-aligned roles. The platform cultivates holistic growth backed by neuroscience for leaders, working parents, founders, and teams seeking to lead with authenticity, alignment, and wholeness. This bonus conversation is a masterclass in resilience, purpose, and rising after unthinkable adversity. We sit down with Dr. Luissa Kiprono. She's a high-risk pregnancy specialist, best-selling author, humanitarian leader, trauma survivor, and healer of women's souls. From escaping Communist Romania as a teenager to rebuilding her life in America, to becoming a maternal-fetal medicine specialist and a global women's health advocate, Dr. Luissa shares how her trauma shaped her, strengthened her, and ultimately empowered her to change the world. Let's welcome her to the show. Welcome to Sunday SoulDay, Dr. Luissa.
Hi, Damesha. I am so excited and very, very grateful for inviting me to your show, and very excited to also meet your audience virtually.
Yes, absolutely. We are very excited to have you and to talk all about your book. Tell us a little bit about that, because I love, having guests on that talk about their, what I like to call pain to purpose. In your case, trauma to triumph. Like in your book, Push, Then Breathe, love the title, by the way. You detail your journey of escape in ultimate victory. Like, what was the most difficult part of sharing such a deeply personal story? And what impact do you hope it have on women around the globe?
So this book started to be written 38 years ago. A couple of months after I arrived in the United States, I started handwriting it in my in language, my born language, which is Romanian. And after a few pages, I kind of gave it, just let it go, tuck it in a box, and it sat there up until about 2015. And then I started thinking about it more and more and more. And at the beginning was just like a thought, then it was like a nudge. Then I tried to record myself. I said, well, I'm going to get faster at it if I just record myself, and then I'm going to have it edited. And that didn't last very long. So finally, I had to take a course, like, to teach me the basics of it, and the book coach, because again, as a single parent, as a physician, here I am, running a practice full time, having to be a full-time mom. It's overwhelming. So something had to give, right? And there are some negotiables there that I could not give away. So I said, I am going to hire a coach. I'm going to get her help, because if I don't sit down and do it now, it will never happen. But the reason it waited this long, the main reason was shame and fear. As a lot of us humans, women, I would say more than men, um, we are ashamed of the past. We are ashamed of what people think of us, but also we think that we are the only one that we go through similar things like this. Whatever trauma is, coming to be at the end. And really, it's not true. It's actually the other way around. There are so many people out there, so many women that go through a tremendous amount of trauma, and they take on the brunt of the shame and the guilt because of that proverbial question, like, I must have done, what did I do wrong? I must have done something wrong. I must have said something that got the other person angry at me, or I must have dressed a certain way that, provoked the person that did this to me, and so forth. And again, people would be like, in our minds, what people would think of me. And when I realized that instead of thinking that way, I was thinking completely wrong. I was like, I have to think from a different perspective. How much is this book going to help other people? When I arrived to that conclusion, then I had the courage to put it all on paper. And I always say, if there is one person out there in a million that my book and my podcast interviews and my teachings and my webinars are going to help get this person over to the other side through that valley of pain and shadows, I achieved my purpose.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And talk to us a little bit about some of the themes in the book, because you mentioned two things that are such common human emotions, which is shame and fear. And I think a large part of humans, we live in a fear state and in a fear mindset rather than a growth or a loving mindset. Talk to us about just a handful of those themes, just to give the audience a little bit of color of what to expect in the book.
I came here a month shy of the age of 19. I came to the United States from Romania, from Communist Romania. I did not speak any English. I spoke only Romanian, French, and German. And came in a 2 months visit to get to know my father. I did not spend any time with my father as I grew up. I met him twice in 19 years, and that was very, very brief. One when I was 2 weeks old, and the second time when I was 4 years old. And the plan was for me to come visit, get to see a little bit of America, get to know who, where did I get the half of the DNA from, and then go back home, go back to my family, and go to medical school and become a physician. That was the plan in the book, in my book and in the book. Well, a couple of weeks into the trip, I realized that my father had very, very different plans for me. And his plans were to keep me here. He had no one, and he really planned to have me here to take care of him. Only that was never shared with me. When I found out the truth over dinner, of course, my first reaction was shock. I'm like, no, this is just not, that doesn't sound right. We would never had this conversation before. Well, afterwards, not only that it was shock, it was denial. Like, no, this is just not happening to me. This is just a bad dream that we've never discussed this. I am going to wake up in the morning and everything is going to be just fine. Only it didn't. What followed was coercion, lies. My passport was taken away. My name was changed. I was coerced to file for political asylum in the United States. And once that happened, and this happened within that first month, once that happened, things became really, really rough. My father promised that if I would stay here in America with him, he will reunite the family and remarry my mother. That never happened. Also, he promised that he will help me go to medical school and become a physician. That never came to par over the following 7 years. So again, the third stage, just anger. Why angry? Because when you feel betrayed, you just kind of lash out, not only at others, but lash out at yourself. You're angry with yourself. I was angry at myself. How could I believe my own father at 19? How could I believe the lies and the promises of a person just so I can stay here? And then you start bargaining. So when you start bargaining, that is really when the other person gains a lot of control over you. And again, the bargaining was, hey, Now you took my passport. Now you made me sign all these papers. Now you made me stay here under false pretenses. Now you're going to bring my mom here and you help me become a doctor. And that bargaining never works because we are in no position to bargain from our position of a victim. We just think we are because that's our last, kind of a last ditch attempt to gain ground, to get out of the situation that we are now in. Months passed, years passed. I experienced a lot of trauma, mental, physical abuse, rape, um, because of the rapes, abortions. So all this and so much more in those 7 years. So of course, it's not unusual to, what is not hard to see that I was very depressed. Depression sets in, anxiety. The only thing that I had left was a couple of minutes on Sunday to talk to my mom over the phone. That was my lifeline and a cat. I had no friends, I had no family, I had no one. He kept me very, very isolated, and I had no language. I didn't know the system. So you see, that is the typical way that an abuser keeps its victims trapped. And you don't have to go to jail to stay trapped. You just don't speak the language, don't know the system, have no money. I had an allowance. I did start working at a grocery store as I started to learn the language. And I had an allowance, Damesha. It was $1 a week. The checks would go to him.
Mhm.
So after a while, you just accept your fate.
Mhm.
Um, and the only thing that really kept, there was one last thing that kept me going, and that was that desire to become a doctor. 6 years after all this tragedy started, I went home for a very short visit, about 5 days. And during the visit, my mom um, gave me $1,000 that I was floored. I was supposed to help my mom, the other way around. And my mom never knew what I was going through here because I never told anyone. Um, but then she told me something that really made me make this decision that I have to run away. She talked to my father a couple of days before I got there, and she really asked him, says, what did you do for my daughter? What did you do for her after all these years that you promised her things and you made her stay there? I says, when will she become a physician? Says, he says, your daughter will never become a physician. She will just be here to take care of me, and she will do a very fine secretary. I wanted to become a doctor since I was a fifth grader. That was my dream. So when everything is taken away from you, you become very powerful because you have nothing else to lose. I had nothing else to lose. So a month after I came back, um, I moved out, got an apartment, started working 3 jobs, got my citizenship that same December. And yeah, the rest is history.
Oh my gosh. First of all, thank you so much for your vulnerability and sharing. And I know you wrote it in your book, but just to hear it in you, I can still hear pain as you're sharing. And so I'm so first grateful that you wrote the book because I know part of that was probably very cathartic for you. But also, I just think about how many people are in a similar situation because there's the stat that I saw that actually blew my mind, the amount of biological fathers that violate their daughters. My mind was blown by the stats because you don't think it's as common, but
Right.
it actually is. And
Yeah.
so much, like you did, like you didn't tell anyone, you didn't tell your mom. Like so a lot goes, unaccounted for. And the residual effects are the shame and the pain and the trauma that you have to live with forever.
And the flashbacks.
And the
Now it's
flashback,
funny.
yeah.
I am a high risk pregnancy physician. So imagine, that all that time, all those, I remember, and I often give this particular story. I was a fellow, maternal-fetal medicine fellow in high risk pregnancy. And one day, this happened, in between 2010 and 2013. So you can see it's a long time, right? I had this patient on the table and she was only 11. And yes, non-speaking, non-English speaking. And her uncle,
Yeah.
he violated her and got her pregnant. And then he ran away out of the country. And while her mom actually was delivering her sister at the hospital. And that moment, her father was there, and I was scanning her, and I stepped away, and everybody was shocked, Damesha, and I couldn't say nothing.
Mm.
I was writing in the chart, and my eyes were in the chart, and all I could think is like, if these people would just know how much this reminds me of my past.
Mm.
So yes, it's always there. It's always cathartic.
Yeah.
You cannot heal those scars. So I
No.
chose to show my scars so others can actually get the power, get
Yes.
the bravery to get out and escape and make a life for themselves, and more so, not to be ashamed because they
Hmm.
didn't do nothing wrong.
Oh my gosh. Oh, you just gave me chills. I love that you said that because I think that is such an important takeaway for the audience. When you have been violated over and over, whether it's physically, sexually, emotionally, you don't ever fully heal, but you learn to live with it and you move through it. And then you did something very powerful. You took your power back by living your pain to purpose.
I have my days.
Absolutely.
Sometimes I just like today. I mean, I speak about this, and um, like you said, even you try to be strong, and things like this, discussions like this, it's almost like, why are you going through this pain again if you know it bothers you so much? Because if I don't speak it, how am I going to help others? How am I going to help others? But like you said, it gives me goosebumps. It gives me goosebumps just to talk about it. I'm like visiting back and, reading excerpts from the book. Or I remember the book is also on audio format. So it has audio and ebook and the hardcover. And I tell you, reading it versus listening to it, it's a big difference. When I listen to my own audiobook for proofing purposes, um, at the end, I just sat on, I was walking because I just kept walking aimlessly, listening to it. I just need to be alone in the nature. And then by the end of it, I just kind of sat there on a rock and I was just crushed. I was like, oh my God, this is just, my whole soul is in it. It's just very, 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 very hard. Extremely, extremely, like soul stabbing.
No, I can imagine. And that's, I empathize with you, even if it's not necessarily a father, but just someone you trust.
Yes.
Like that is the hardest thing. And it's even harder when it's in your home because your home is where you're supposed to be safe, where you're supposed to be protected and loved and all of those things. And it's such a distorted version of love, and so I can imagine how that manifests in your life, because we are all of our parts made up. And so, like, you know, when those wounds happened and they're open and they're unhealed and you're not taking your power back fully, I can imagine how that manifested throughout your life. Talk to us a little bit about that. Like, was it difficult for you to be in relationships? Was it difficult for you to like have friendships and trust people? Talk to us about the trust.
So it's interesting that you bring that up. And nobody really brought that up before. And I've done about 60 podcasts. But it's so true as a physician, especially. I have patients who come in and they have, trauma, whether they are GYN patients or this all women's health, and how, they have all the scars and they really can't say a lot, but they can see how they manifest and how they are the chronic pelvic pain and the fact that they find solace in things like eating or substance abuse or just pain, just need their attention, and the attention is, I have pain, I have to share this pain with others, and nothing is that we can do is to fix it. Okay, because there is really, it's also a mental and emotional pain that triggers that physical pain. But when it comes to trust, we trauma survivors, and I will take the leap to say we, because we all have this. As a trauma survivors, we have very hard time establishing relationships, and not only establishing them, but keeping them lasting. One, because of the trust issue, it's like one of those things, that when is that other shoe going to drop, right? Um, is this person going to harm me? Or is it true that he really loves me? I mean, it's almost like you're always questioning because you got burned. It's like a scared animal. Okay, well, this person, my master is petting me. Think of a dog, right? Okay, when is he going to kick me next? So it is our survival mechanism that kicks in and always, kind of. I am the kind of person that I'm very optimistic and I'm trustworthy. But even then, some all those things kind of comes to mind. Like, okay, well, does it really mean that? Um, but not only that, it's feelings. Trauma-ridden people, trauma survivors, have a difficult time expressing their emotions and feeling the love, feeling the joy, feeling the sadness. It's because think about it is a mechanism of self-defense. When you get so hurt for chronic time, lengthy amount of time, you have to kind of put some barriers, right? And it becomes the normal state of things. You always have to think, okay, I got to step out of this and I got to let myself be human. And when I come across all, people look at me like, you're so tough, you're so strong, you're so brave, you speak your mind, and I always say, even to my sons, I'm like, deep inside, I'm always that little girl. I am loving and I am sentimental and I love, what's beautiful in nature and flowers and sun and birds. I'm like a little kid. But when I go outside that little space, yes, it's comfortable to put up that strong suit on.
Thank you for sharing that. Like I love how you articulated that because I think that is the misconception that people who have been through, any sort of trauma that they're carrying, those wounds with them, they they're like hyper vigilant in
Mhm.
relationships, and
Yeah.
they want to trust and they, want to believe in that person, but it is difficult until you continue to heal those wounds. And so like I'd written about this in my newsletter. I treat relationships, like we're always looking for the red flags and the green flags, right, in people. But I think if you think of yourself as like driving a car with someone, it's like if there's something that comes up that, kind of you're questioning, it's important to address it then. And I think for someone who's been through things, and push their feelings and emotions down, it's very difficult to deal with those in the moment. And so, like, learning to articulate a lot more and communicate is always very helpful. And that's really helped me, because I remember there was a time, I was violated as a child by two different people. And I remember, like, always, like, putting everyone else's needs before mine, and not necessarily articulating or fully trusting. It's like either I trusted fully, and then the minute that trust was broken, I was like, no longer will I ever trust you again, like,
Yeah. No, I
and
understand.
so, and then I got to a point where I was like, okay, you got to earn my trust, and then now I'm at a place where I'm like, I you need to I will trust you up to a certain point, but then you need to continue to prove that trust, or earn that trust, to get through the layers, because I think that's an important part, is like allowing yourself that
Mhm.
time with, whether it's an intimate relationship or friendship, not just going in fully trusting, because that's also a wound, that I've learned that I had to heal. Is like, I would be so trusting of people, and then I would get so disappointed, and then and I've just never wanted to have a wall up, like, with my trust. But what I've learned now, understanding myself more, is I'm like, I want to believe the actions and the words need to have congruence, but also too, like, it needs to happen over time, and
Agree.
I
I
think this,
fully agree with you.
yeah, like, and it's really like the safety and the emotional,
Mhm.
like, just allowing yourself to be vulnerable with someone, I think, is also very difficult, after you've
And
experienced this.
I also believe in like just like you said, in those conversations, because the people who you love, the relationship that you start with that person, they don't know. They cannot, like, they can't understand
No,
because
they
they have not
cannot.
gone.
Yeah.
Correct. I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
It's just so simple, like you say, someone, how could you not understand? Well, he can't because, or she can't because she's never been through the pain and the suffering that you have been. So I think it's important, like, to say, hey, otherwise, you know what happens? Um, they think that you're punishing them. Like, am I going to pay for somebody else's sins, so to speak? No, what I want you to understand, to give me to remember this conversation and give me some lenience when you see me acting that way, because now you understand where I'm coming from. Otherwise, you don't know what you don't know as a partner. And it always feels like, okay, you're letting me in and you're pushing me away. You're letting me in. Well, what is it going to be? Well, it's because we are afraid. I'm letting you know, okay, well, what's going to happen now? Or I'm pushing you away. Well, I shouldn't have done that. This is that almost like a guilt and acceptance, fight that happens within us.
Yeah, and I think it happens like that until you heal that part of you, So right now, like, I would say, like, my inner child is very safe with me. And, I've been working on healing my inner teen as well. And it doesn't mean that they're fully healed. We're going to be on our healing journey forever, but I feel a lot more, comfortable, like, articulating my needs in a relationship. And I think that's a struggle of, people who have been in any sort of trauma, situation,
Right.
is being able to fully articulate their needs, and then also being worthy. And I know that you talk a lot about that, when you said women are worthy, like, their goals matter, like, they matter, um, but so many women, even if they haven't been in traumatic situations like you lived through, like, but maybe they're just struggling with their own personal identity, because maybe their abuse was more verbal, but in their limiting beliefs. Like, what, I guess, would be the first step that you would recommend someone would take to reclaim their power?
Hone in your dream,
Mhm.
whatever that may be. You must have a dream, a goal. There's something every human out there has a dream, a goal, like something that you can hang on to once you identify it and say, you know what, I'm gonna get there. If for now, and not for nobody, for yourself, because it is you that matters most. So once that happens, you have to find your anchors. I call it filling your cup. So every day you just think about what happens when you wake up, right? Fill your cup with whatever makes you brings you joy and makes you happy. And make sure that that happiness stays there for you every day. Fill your cup every day, whether there is running, reading, what is a yoga, what is just looking out there in the horizon, whatever that may be. That is something that I always say, be selfish with yourself for half an hour a day. It matters so much. We, especially women, we have this, I think it's a genetic predisposition. We just want to give and give and give. It's like, I think it's the motherly nature in us that we just want to cater to make people happy. The problem is that when it goes too far, you just deplete it. And one day you look yourself in the mirror and like, I don't even recognize this person anymore. Who am I? Is there anything left that of my dreams and goals and wants and needs? Or I'm just kind of like depleted of it all. So make sure that happens. I am a huge believer in that, Damesha. I mean, I get up, like if I have a busy schedule, I will dial back my alarm to 5 a.m. to get up and put that little cup up there. And for me, it's running. I gotta get that. It's my sanity check. But for
Yeah.
others, it's something else. But it is important because if you don't take care of yourself, that cup goes empty quick. And there's nothing that will bring you joy. You just kind of run on fumes. Then you feel like, well, I'm not worth it. It's okay. I take care of the whole world. Well, you can't take care of the whole world if you don't take care of yourself first.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, and I think too, like when women especially give and give and give and give, then they harbor resentment and anger, and not just for the other person, but themselves. And, if you think about it, the body keeps the score of everything. And so it continues to fester in you. Everything is energy. So it's like you have that energetic, negative energy inside of you. And so it's so important, like to, Dr. Luissa's point is to feed yourself, like fill yourself back up, fill your cup up with whatever you need, and every day may be different, like what
Yes.
worked for you, like, maybe last month might not work this month. That's okay too. Give yourself space. But I do think it's so important, to carve out time for yourself and to understand that you're worthy of it, whatever that looks like for you. So yeah, I agree completely.
100%. And don't ever feel apologetic for giving
Yes.
yourself that. It's okay to do that. I mean, I trust, I want you to believe 100% in this. You will feel such a better person when you're going to get this hold of this and say, you know what, I take charge of that half an hour a day. It's going to be just for me because then you become happy because you're fulfilled. And guess what? It's all going to be happy around you. If you're miserable, everybody's going to be miserable. I mean, just so it happens that that's how we build. If we are not happy, how could we impart happiness? How it's not possible. So I very much believe in that. And the third is connect with others.
Mhm.
I'm a huge communicator and I love to network. I love to talk to people. If I am, I have a bad day, as in very depressed, or I have something really, really going on, I pick up the phone and I speak with my sons or my husband, or over a glass of wine, or I speak with my best friend. Just, just speak it out. Again, like you said, keep it inside, it festers.
Absolutely. As a high-risk pregnancy specialist and CEO, physician, all the things that you're doing, you're saving lives daily. Like at same point, like, you're also leading global health initiatives in Africa and Latin America, which is amazing, by the way. What fuels your passion to balance both frontline medicine in humanitarian missions?
The power of doing good. Like I love to help people. It's something that brings me so much joy. And it's not like I'm giving you, you have a headache or you have a toothache or, anything in pregnancy. It's not about that kind of healing. It's the whole person. It is such an amazing feeling when that person, as holistically feels better about her pregnancy. When I do preconception counseling, that is my goal. And I tell my patients, my goal is for you to be set up before you even get pregnant to have a healthy pregnancy, not for your baby only, but for you too. You see what's happening here? You matter because I always say, mom comes first.
Yeah.
I'm such a women's advocate because I believe women come first. And I want them to believe that when you get pregnant, it's like, again, you think your life doesn't matter. And I want them to always remember without mom, there's no baby. Okay. You may have, you may have other babies, but certainly your babies will not have another mom if something happens to you. That to me, when they hear this, like, oh my God, you're right. So it brings so much joy to help people to see that, the smile in their face, that the fact that they put their most joyful part, those 9 months. I mean, there's nothing out there. Okay, if you heal a toe, or I'm not minimalizing what other specialties do, but having a pregnancy and having a baby and seeing it grow within you, another miracle of life. There's nothing that you can compare it with. There's just nothing out there.
No, absolutely. And I mean, if you even think about coming into the world, just the conception process is a miracle.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like, I mean, just starting there, and then also, carrying a baby to full term, because so many don't, is also another miracle. And then actually birthing the baby okay, and mom and baby are safe and healthy at the end is another miracle.
Yes.
So I completely agree with you. And I think it is so important to remind women, especially when they're pregnant, to really take care of themselves. So I love that you focus on the whole person because, again, the trauma that we experience even starts in the womb. You think
Yes.
about those generational traumas that we carry that go unhealed with our mothers, our grandmothers, etc. Like it also happens in the womb. So it is
And
so important.
also is the fact that everything you experience as a pregnant mom, that baby experiences.
Exactly. Exactly. No, exactly. And even though we don't think that, it's like it because we think it's just happening to us, they
Mm-mm.
do, and they carry that.
Yes.
So yes, I love that you touched on that. Given your global perspective, I'm very curious about this. Like, what do you see as the most urgent changes that need to happen, like in maternal and neonatal, if I can talk today, care, both in the US and also internationally to reduce like just preventable deaths? Because I mean, like I just said, it's a miracle, the entire process.
We are going through huge, huge challenges, not only international, but here at home. Because, access to care is less and less, affordable.
Mhm.
The telemedicine that was flourishing during COVID, now it's kind of taking a back step, uh, when it comes to reimbursement and even importance. And I tell you, I have patients who live 3 hours away, and the only way that they can talk to a maternal-fetal medicine specialist is through a video visit. I have, and to me, it's important all across for the mom and the baby to know when to go to the nearest hospital, when to expect, what to expect. And all these things, it worries me because I'll give you an example. We have 59 million women in the United States of childbearing age, okay? 16 to 45, out of which there is only 1,587 maternal fetal medicine specialists, which is high risk pregnancy, like I am. And 99% of them are concentrated in big cities that have level 3, level 4. Well, most women and most families don't just live in big cities. They live in rural areas. They have no money. They have no insurance. They have no means, whether it is financial or transportation, to get there. And the same thing if you go internationally. I mean, the amount of, high risk patients, the amount of abnormalities in the fetuses, preeclampsia, diabetes, hypertension, mental health. I mean, it is just staggering, and it's just growing and growing. I mean, you just look in the United States, there's so many more high risk patients. I mean, just we don't talk about drugs, we don't talk about, the multitude like diabetes, high blood pressure. We just talk about, hey, how many patients now that are in their 40s that are pregnant? Staggering compared with what it was 20 years ago. How many patients that used to undergo natural conception, now they go fertility and IVF because of their comorbidities like hypertension, diabetes, PCOS, infertility, and so forth. It is staggering. And it's just the balance is so skewed. So let's not just take away, other means like telemedicine, like, help, financial help. They're gonna be like, well, they have to go to work. Well, yes, they have to go to work, but the truth of the matter is some people are so high risk they can't go to work, or maybe they can't find a job. They need that extra help to be able. They're pregnant. I mean, what are you gonna do? Just say you shouldn't have got pregnant? It's a right to have a baby, to be healthy. It's not some kind of a privilege. So as you can tell, I feel very strongly about that.
No, I'm so grateful for your active vision on this. Like I'm very grateful that you are as passionate and just vocal, because I think we need more people speaking up for women right now, especially right now. And the current administration, I think, is doing a lot more harm than good.
I mean, think about abortions, Damesha.
Yes,
Okay, if we
yes.
have to talk
I was
about the
just
elephant
gonna
in the
go there.
room,
Yep.
okay. The state of Texas has one of the strictest
Mhm,
abortion laws, inclusive rape and incest. Now,
mhm.
how do you think I feel based on my history when I read those lines? There's no comment there, right? I mean, you are going to say you must carry that baby to term and have it, no matter what you're like pinned down and raped, or your parent, or your stepdad, or uncle, whatever, got you pregnant. You must. That is your sentence for the rest of your life. You know what? If as a mother, you want to do that, then it's your right to say, yes, I want to do this. If you say no, that's your right again. But it's a right. It's a fundamental right for you to be able to choose. It cannot be shoved down your throat for the remainder of your natural life.
But they're taking that right away. And also what also blew my mind is just the access to care that they're removing for people who need it, and the accessibility that you talked about is getting removed, and so many things that just keep happening. And I even read something where if a woman, goes into an emergency room and she's pregnant, she could be denied care if they're too busy. Like, whereas
Oh,
before, they could never do that.
that's
But under the
correct.
current administration, I had to read it 5 or 6 times to make sure I read it correctly. But it just blows my mind. And you think about even outside the administration, like even the state laws around, women who have children, and then like, they have to work up to a certain point. It's like some women have such a difficult pregnancy, but they're still going to work,
Yes.
and they have to in order to get the benefit, where they can actually take 6 or 8 weeks off depending on their state. And in some states don't offer anything at all.
Yeah.
And so you know, I'm I'm so baffled, because I'm like, you see these men making choices for women. There's not a single woman in the room. I remember they kind of took a picture of the office, and it was just all men. Like, and they're making choices for women's bodies, and so I
Yes.
can imagine, your journey, all of your experiences that you've experienced.
I am smiling because it's I had when I was pregnant with my first child, I had a male physician, very, very, very good OB/GYN. But then he said to me one day, he says, I know how you feel. And I said, no, you don't.
You don't
You may
never
think, you
can
may
empathize.
empathize,
Yeah.
but you don't. You must, and if you do, then something is really weird here because I was not aware you you could carry a baby. Okay? No, you do not know how it feels. You have to be a woman. You have to be that had was pregnant, that has a child, that birthed a child, or lost a child, to be able to empathize to the point to say, I know how I feel. I know how you feel because I am a mother. I went through what you go through. But so I understand what you say. A room full of men is making decision about women's rights. I mean, it makes no sense.
No sense at all. And I'm at a loss for words. I feel, especially raising children and just all the shifts that have happened, and not for the good, of our human race. And so constantly, um, I'm just at a loss for words, and so I'm so grateful for your voice, because we need women, strong women like you who can advocate.
And we need more of us, more
Yes.
like, because the more we rise and the more we speak up, the harder it is to quiet us down. If you
Yes.
just have one, it's easy to quiet that person down. But if you have 1,000 on 10,000 and say it, we are becoming a force. We cannot be quieted down as easily.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Thank you for this, because I never know where conversations are going to take us, but I am so grateful for this conversation. And I know you had talked about how you take care of yourself a little bit. You touched on that you love to run. What are some other ways that you kind of fuel your mind, your body, and your soul as a mother, physician, entrepreneur, and advocate? How are you taking care of yourself, mind, body, and soul, so you can continue to show up for others the way that you do?
Well, I try very hard to um, give as much time as I possibly can to me as a person, to my family, to my sons. It is very important. To me, is I take care of, if I am healthy, if I exercise and eat a healthy diet and get my sleep, otherwise I won't be able to show up fully present for my patients, for my family. My sons have of course, they're my sons, but if they call, when they call, I just can put everything aside and I take the phone call. We keep very much in touch every 1 to 2 days. They call. I tell them, if you don't have time, at least, text me and say you're going to be okay. Um, they're just my soul. And it's important to remember your priorities. And my priorities are my health, my family, and my profession and my God. And it's important to keep them all, check on them. When you say on all those priorities, check on your priorities, keep them healthy. Don't say, well, we'll what about this later. No, those are no non-negotiables. Those are your values. And if you don't have your values straight, eh, you know, things are going to start going by the wayside. It's almost like, forgetting to wet the flower. You don't give it the water and you don't give it some fertilizer, yeah, it may start skimping, and then after a while it just kind of dies off. Same thing here. To me, keeping the communication going. And sometimes we get through very crucial or sensitive discussions, my sons and and I have a disclaimer. Hey, I'm a doctor. We're going to talk this open here. I'm an OBGYN. And actually, it's the joke of the household. Like, yeah, your mom can talk about anything. Well, I have to teach you, right? It's I have to tell you that things can happen. As a physician, I know. I mean, I'm a physician in women's health and sexuality. God, if you don't talk what happens 50 years ago, nobody wanted to talk about what happens when you are a teenager. What happens, when you date a guy or you date a girl? Well, things happen. You can get this, you can get this. You have to protect yourself. And they look, how they are. They look at you like, Mom. I'm like, what? I'm an OBGYN. I gotta talk to you about that.
But I think
But
it's healthy. It's healthy,
it is, yeah.
But I love that you talk about your priorities. And I think that is so important because a lot of times we place the priorities, in places everywhere else except for ourselves.
Yes.
So I think that is such a key takeaway from what you shared. So I just love that, and it's like family, yourself, God in your work. I
Yeah.
love that. It's so simple, but it's so it's so important to make sure that those cups are filled, so
And
um
don't be afraid to say no. I
yeah.
mean, that is our biggest problem. We are afraid to say no. When I very first heard that on the radio, I was like, you're right. We're afraid to say no. Like, it's okay.
Or if we
Y-
do say no, we feel like we need to provide a, whole dissertation on why we're saying no. Like, and you don't. I'm like, no is a complete sentence. I remember sharing this story on the podcast. So anyone heard this already, sorry, but I remember we were working in a company and my boss that I was reporting to at the time, he was like, I really didn't want to go to we had all of these parties all the time, it was like a lot of happy hours. And he's like, I didn't want to go to the happy hour. And I was like, well, why are you going? And he was like, oh, I couldn't get out of it. He's like, I told, the CEO I didn't want to go. And then he asked me why. And I was giving him these reasons and he kept countering me. So I just finally gave in. And he was like, are you going? And I said, no. And he goes, well, how did you get out of it? I said, I just said no. And this was early on in my career, and he just kind of looked at me. I was, and this was when I was taking my power back. This is like in my early 30s,
Yeah.
and I was like, I was slowly taking my power back. And one of the things that I said is, do not owe anyone an explanation on the decisions I'm making for my life.
Very nice. Very
It's between
nice.
me and God. And
Yeah.
so that has really, really served me like from my 30s, and now I'm 46 today. So yeah, I'm
Happy
so
birthday.
I know. Well, not exactly. My birthday's not today, but I'm
Oh,
I'm
I
46.
was like, wow, I am honored.
Yeah. No, but it's like that. I think it's so difficult, especially for women, because
Yes.
we don't want to disappoint.
Yes. Yeah.
We
No,
don't want
you're
to
very right.
disappoint. And I am okay disappointing
I
people, but I do not want to disappoint myself anymore.
yeah. And it's like, what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah, exactly.
They're gonna
No.
get upset. I promise you, by the next week, they're gonna forget all about it. It's- but you're right. We as I'm getting more and more comfortable on who I am, and I have been for a while. I feel just like you said. I feel powerful that I can say it as opposed to be like, I should have said that. No, I said it. Now I feel good. It's like I threw up a frog. I feel so much
Yeah, well, and it's interesting. I don't mix my words. Like I say what I mean and I mean what I say. And so like even with my children, my son is 9 and my daughter is 8. And if I ask them to come downstairs right now, they're actually home on break right now, but they'll tell you my no's are no's and my yeses are yeses. And I'm a firm believer in that. So like I don't ever apologize for the words that I say because I say things with great intention and I mean everything I say. But I will apologize for my delivery if my delivery may have felt, harsh or,
right.
not as kind or whatever words you want to use, like if someone's offended by them, like I will never, but I won't apologize for the words I use, and that's part of me taking my power back too, because I think we are, as a culture, females especially, like we tend to apologize all the time. And half the time we're not even sorry, but we're just apologizing. Like you look at an email and it's like, oh, I'm sorry, am interrupting you, or sorry, I have this question, or I'm sorry, and you don't need to be sorry, because the question that you have matters. Like
Yes.
what you have to say matters. So you don't have to apologize for it.
Yeah. Well, if you remember, that's how we started, our conversation
Mhm.
together. You sent me an email and I sent an email back.
Yes.
And it was I believe in being direct. It's a big difference. People think that
And I said, I
women are,
appreciate it.
yes, you did. And I loved your email. I will keep it and I still have it and I will keep it because yeah, I
Yes.
said, wow, I guess I said I did not ruffle her feather. There is a big difference between
No.
being direct and being abrasive. Huge difference.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I say that all the time. I could not agree more. But I'm going to say this too, if I can add to that, it's not really a but it's an and. And I also think people aren't comfortable with it because most people are not direct. They
Hmm.
talk around things,
Yes.
I call it they paint a Picasso, they're like painting a Picasso instead of just honing in
Say
on
it.
saying, I really want the color red, but they're going to show you all the different colors instead. And so
Yes.
I I always appreciate directness. Like, and I've always, I mean, even I think it's the former athlete in me. Like my coaches were always direct. So I've always appreciated that. And I've always struggled with managers or people that I reported to that talked
Around. Paint a
around things.
Picasso.
Yeah, painting a Picasso, instead of being very direct and real, and I think there's a level of, you feeling comfortable within your skin to be like that. But it takes practice because not
Yeah.
everyone is there yet, so you give grace.
Yeah, it does take practice. And also you have to, the thing of it, what I noticed when two people are direct, you
Mhm.
came out from that conversation very clear with what you have to
Yes.
do next and
Yeah.
what you took from the conversation. As opposed to everybody is painting a Picasso, and after an hour and a half of a meeting, you get out, you come out of the meeting like, I'm really not sure what I got out of that meeting.
Oh my gosh.
It's
That is
exhausting.
It is. I love that you said that because that has been my experience at working in some companies, where they talk around everything but the actual problem. And then people come out of this 3-hour meeting and still don't know what they're supposed to do.
Hmm.
That was a very expensive meeting. You had so many people in the room, you wasted 3 hours and then still no direction.
Yeah.
But that is so many relationships, if you think about it, even in intimate relationships
Yeah.
where people cannot articulate their needs, but they're miserable,
Yep.
but they stay because they're comfortable.
Yep. Or
Yeah.
stay for the wrong reasons.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh my goodness. What a treat. We should do another conversation on relationships.
Well, I will take you up on that. We can talk about anything. We can talk about leadership. We can talk about
Yes,
women's health.
I'd love to.
We can even talk about races. I'm a triathlete. I do Ironmans. That's my hobby. That's one of my hobbies. And
That's
again, it's related
amazing.
to health.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, it's all fosters from the same thing. It's just be happy in your own skin
Yeah.
and just nurture yourself first
Mm.
because and everything will follow. When you are kind to yourself, when you love yourself to the point that my health matters, I give everything to my family, but I do need that little bit of time just for myself. It makes me a better person. And I think we need to remember that as humans, period, that because we tend to just give, and then we just become empty. And like you said, we start resenting everything around us just because
Well,
we're
yeah. And we're serving from a fractional version of ourselves. And so
yes.
large part of my coaching is helping people remember those parts so they can get to radical acceptance. Because what is so beautiful about all of our experiences is they're all different, they're all unique,
Hmm.
and
Unique.
they make up us. And so getting to a place of radical acceptance of all of your parts, that's when you can serve from a place of wholeness. but you have to go through that process, and it sounds like you continue to go through that process. And so I love that you wrote this book because you're going to help so many people just by sharing your story. And it's a large part of why I have this podcast is I get to talk to incredible people like you and all of my other incredible guests. And I feel very privileged to do the work that I'm doing because I don't want people to feel like they're alone because they're not. And if we really pour into, I call it the 5 pillars, our 5 pillars, our 5 cups or 5 pillars, whichever words you want to use, a large part of that is ourselves and our family, God or your spirituality, whatever your spiritual belief system is,
Mm-hmm.
your joy cup. So you can practice or tap into your childlike energy, and tap into your dreams, but also like the work cup. I think it's important to do hard things. You've done very hard things in your life, and when you're able to do those hard things, that's when you can, really serve from a place, and I think that's the last cup is like being able to serve, so it's like doing those hard things, but also being of service and giving it back.
That
So
is so true. Paying it forward.
important. Yes, absolutely. So for people who want to purchase your book, where is it available and
So
where can they find you?
yes. So I have 2 websites. It's my platform. It's Dr. Luissa, Luissak .com. You are going to find me there. I have my website. I also have a contact form. If you want to see my telemedicine practice, it's telemedmfm.com. And my book, Push Them Breathe, uh, Trauma, Triumph, and the Making of an American Doctor. Um, it's in Amazon. It's also a hard copy, ebook, and audiobook. You can also get it through Audible, Spotify, and Apple. And if you want to come straight to me, I also, as the author, sell my own copies. The perk about selling my own copies is that I get to autograph it with for you or your name, and we'll just send it to you directly. Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for blessing Sunday Soul Day. And I just love this conversation.
Thank you. And I am so thrilled that we have met. And I want you to know that. And please reach out anytime. If you happen to be one day and say, you know what, I'm putting together a conference of all these women that want to speak up, just call me up. I'll be more than happy to be there.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. And everyone, as always, have an amazing Sunday. And do us a favor, leave your favorite part about this conversation with Dr. Luissa in the comments below, or even something that you learned.